research, both for the industry as well as for academia. So without further delay, as we are running crunch on time, sure. Photo now. Okay, so there's a demand to have a photograph before starting everything. So I would like to have all the speakers to stand.
Then we are done.
Okay, then I would like to have all the speakers stand up in front of this, and we can have a photograph. Okay. I also need to. Okay, without further delay, let's start our session. So our first speaker is Professor Virginia Digdam. Professor Virginia Digdam is Professor of Responsible AI at Umeå University in Sweden and also affiliated with the Civic AI Lab back at University of Amsterdam. So Virginia, the floor is yours. I'm going to put your slides in and we can start from there.
And I have like an hour, I believe.
Oh, well, no, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Oh, wow. Okay, great. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a computer scientist turned social technical advocate, and today I will talk from the perspective of the social technical importance in what we are doing in AI. First thing to remember every time, but especially as from the perspective of the societal and human impact of AI, is that AI doesn't happen to us. It's not the weather, it's not an uncontrollable force. It's something that we people design, that we decide, and is shaped and formed by our choice, by our data, by the incentives and the governance that we put or fail to put on it. The current AI approach to AI is not necessarily the best, maybe, is not inevitable, and we do need to take a much more stronger perspective about how to coordinate the technical advances with the social technical requirements, needs, and expectations. AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's something which is shaped by our choices and mostly is also and should be shaped by the question why. Why are we using AI for this? Why are we using AI for that? And those are questions that are basically not technical questions. Typically, an engineer like me doesn't learn how to answer why questions. We learn how to answer how to do questions, how to solve problems. So starting by asking the question zero, the question why, is one which is core to this understanding of AI as a social technical system. And therefore, the core is governance. AI is not neutral. It can help us, it can undermine us. But at every time, it embodies human choice. Governing AI means, at the end, that we are governing ourselves, and we need to understand what do we want to have as the result of this governance. Technology will tell us more is better. We need more data, we need more algorithmic power, we need more computing power, and then we'll get better AI. We'll hear this message again and again during this week here or everywhere else where we talk technology of AI. The society will ask, is it really better? Data availability is not, the world that AI sees from the data that is available is not the world where we live, is definitely not the world where we want to live, and more data is not going to necessarily improve this skewedness of the data. Computing power comes with costs, energy costs, resource costs, but also one which often governments fail to tell us, investment costs. Money that goes into AI doesn't go somewhere else. And who is deciding that, and how our governments are making those choices are things that we need to question ourselves. And the algorithms are as powerful as we are, because for a large part what happens is mediated by those that are curating and managing the data, but also increasingly by those that are babysitting the chatbots and making sure that chatbots and self-driving cars and whatever do what they should be doing. And without these people, we don't really have AI as we believe that we are using. So the artificial part of it is not completely true. And AI impact means our responsibility. The concerns that we need to talk about, and concerns that you will hear again and again this week here, are mostly social technical concerns. The idea of datification. It's important to have data, and no one disputes that, but reality is more than data. We are more than our data, and by focusing on the data, we are somehow commodifying and quantifying our existence, narrowing it much more than what we people are capable of. Data is always constructed, is something that we build, and therefore is always also historical and biased. And data availability is unfortunately becoming the measure of the importance of a problem. If we have data, then it's a problem that is worth to address. If we don't have data, probably is not really a relevant thing to do. So becoming data rich and insight poor is something, a concern that we really need to address from the social technical part. The other one is the issue of power. Who is developing AI? What are their motivations? Who is deciding and who is accountable? Those are all questions that we need to address from a societal and human perspective, as well as the sustainability that I just talked about in the previous one. Social technical governance is institutional. It's about going beyond the principles and guidelines, going beyond the declarations and the signing whatever recommendations will come here, is really embedding governance in the institutions that we have, around procurement rules, around the accountability within the public sector, around the ensuring an independent oversight and audit capacity, a clear allocation of responsibility. It can never be that governance of AI comes down to the answer, the system as decided. Beyond, it needs to go beyond the technical robustness and safety. Of course, robustness and safety are important, but at the end of the day, the core is legitimacy. Who is defining what fairness means? Who is deciding what safety means? Who is deciding what trustworthy means? If we are not discussing that ourselves, someone else is deciding it for us. What are the risks they are prioritizing? Who is participating on deciding what are the trade-offs? Who is benefiting and who is bearing the cost? Addressing AI impact is not about controlling technology. It's about governing this power, responsibility, and collective choice at the end of the day. So we might start thinking about a new AI paradigm, one which recognizes that AI is not a universal solution, is not a solution to all our problems, which recognizes that we need to start by the why question. Should we be using AI here? Why is that? What other options do we have? A paradigm which addresses the inherent risks of bias and discrimination, mostly a paradigm that goes beyond the disciplines, integrates social and technical expertise in the design of AI from the onset and not as afterthought after the whole technology has been developed, needs to address the systemic societal challenge and involving many more actors than just the technologists. Of course, it also requires robust technical standards for those very societal issues such as verifiability, trustworthiness, participatory. So this new AI paradigm needs to be a social technical paradigm, just moving to the next step in the technology. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Virginia. This was really awesome and really helpful in understanding that not only technical measures are indeed useful, but a combination of understanding socio-technical needs is a way to go for. Okay, as we are running short on time, I would like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Harry Verfijs. He is the ambassador for AI at the government of the Netherlands, and he has something for us to share us with. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you very much for this introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining this event today. And it's really a pleasure to stand before you on a topic that just a year ago was in the dark for me, and slowly but surely I start to get to grips with the subject. I think The fact that I've been here in India for the second time in just a few months tells you something about the Dutch-India relationship, but it also reflects India's growing importance on the world stage, but also its central role in shaping global thinking on emerging technologies. The Netherlands had the honor of serving as co-chair of the working group on AI for economic growth and social good at the AI Impact Summit, and it was my privilege to represent the Netherlands in that role and contribute to shaping a shared vision on how AI can serve society. This visit also carries personal significance. The Netherlands is reshaping its international approach to AI, and within our ministry we have established a dedicated AI task force, which I now have the privilege of leading as the Netherlands ambassador at large for AI. So this is my first official visit abroad in that role. So in a very real sense, this summit is where my mandate begins. The theme of today's event, the socio-technical turn on AI, captures something important and I think still not fully understood in policy circles. We've become quite good at talking about AI as a socio-technical phenomenon. The language is everywhere in strategy documents, academic papers, and summit communiques. But here's the paradox. The more widely the concept is used, the more its meaning becomes unclear. And unclear meaning leads to fragmented governance. And that is precisely the gap this event is designed to close. And precisely why dialogue between researchers, civil society and policymakers is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Understanding AI as a socio-technical system is not just an academic insight, it is essential for good governance. So let me explain why I believe this so strongly, not from theory, but from experience. Several years ago, the Netherlands experienced a serious institutional failure. Our tax authorities used automated risk profiling to identify suspected fraud in child benefit claims. The system worked from a technical perspective. It flagged cases efficiently, but it did so in ways that were opaque, discriminatory and deeply harmful to thousands of families who lost their benefits, their savings and their stability. This was not a technology failure in the narrow sense. The algorithms functioned as designed. It was a socio-technical failure, a failure to understand how a technical system interacts with institutional power, administrative culture, legal safeguards, and the lived realities of vulnerable citizens. That experience did not make us skeptical of technology. It made us serious about governance. It taught us that innovation without accountability is not progress. It is risk shifted on those who can least afford it. The Netherlands' approach to AI governance rests on a core conviction. AI can only succeed if it's trustworthy, and trust must be actively built. We have developed a governance framework for AI in the public sector that applies across the full chain of implementation, from developers and procurement officers to policy staff and legal advisors. In open source, continuously updated and designed to evolve alongside the technology. So our public algorithm registry now documents over 1,350 algorithms and AI systems submitted by more than 320 public bodies at every level of government. This transparency allows citizens and civil society to see which automated systems affect their rights. So for 5 years, we've been learning from our impact assessment for algorithms and human rights, developed with Utrecht University's data school. We are now updating it to reflect generative and agentic AI, as well as the EU AI Act. What makes this assessment valuable is that it was co-developed with researchers and practitioners, and it is actively used by people making real decisions in government. So these tools matter because the process behind them, one that brings together government, industry, academia, and civil society. Multi-stakeholders collaboration is the foundation of our AI policy. In addition, the Netherlands has established ethical, legal, and societal aspects of AI in so-called ELSA labs. 12 labs are now in operation and each focus on a specific domain: media and democracy, public safety, sustainable food systems, and since December, 3 labs dedicated to AI in healthcare. And each lab brings together researchers, public institutions, and civil society to work on shared challenges, not just to produce reports, but to deliver real-world impact. Beyond governance, we are investing in the infrastructure and talent that responsible AI requires. Under the Euro HPC initiative, we are establishing an AI factory in Groningen, the Netherlands, and this gives researchers, startups, and public institutions access to the computing power they need while keeping strategic capabilities in public hands rather than concentrated in a small number of private platforms. GTP-NL, our Dutch large language model, built on trusted data by public research institutions. It shows that innovation and public values are not in conflict if you design them for both from the beginning. And through NOL AI, our National Education Lab for AI, supported by 80 million euros from our National Growth Fund, we are embedding AI literacy in education. Because ultimately, the future of AI will be shaped not by the technology itself, but by the people who understand and guide it. So let me be clear about why I'm here in this setting with you as an audience. The Sociotechnical turn has produced insights that governance urgently needs, but the translation into practice is not happening fast enough. Policymakers use socio-technical language without always fully understanding its implications. Researchers produce findings that do not always reach those in positions to act. Civil society raises important concerns, but these are not always fully reflected in system designs. So this event is a deliberate effort to change that dynamic. And the Indo-Dutch dimension is important. Our countries have different histories, administrative cultures, and relationship with technology and institutional trust. This difference is not a barrier to cooperation. It is a strength. Governance frameworks that only work in one context are not true frameworks. They are examples. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the future of AI governance will not be shaped by any single country, institution, or research tradition. It will be built carefully, step by step and together, by people in rooms like this one, who are willing to speak honestly about what is not working and seriously explore what might work better. The Netherlands is committed to that process, not because we have all the answers. Our own experiences show that clearly, as I explained, but because we believe that shared learning is the only path to shared solutions. I look forward to the discussion ahead. Please do reach out to us, to Lisa, my colleague, and to Justin, my embassy colleague here. Challenge us, share your perspective, and let us explore how we can move forward together. With this, thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry. This was really useful. I'm sorry we don't have time for questions, but Harry will be here till the evening, so be ready for the questions then. Okay. Moving around with the next speaker. So we have our next speaker online. I'm then trying to dial in. If we succeed, then it's going to be all right. Otherwise, I'm going to take that myself. Thank you so much for the internet. I hope it works. Okay, no worries. Then let's just go it together. Great. Can you close the door, please? Thank you. So, Innovation Center for Artificial Intelligence from the Netherlands. Why we even submitted a session request to be a part of India AI Summit? Because we believe that in terms of how current approaches for technical domains are being followed upon, it's really urgent to take a socio-technical stand where the cultural, societal, and the norms of each and every geographic region can be taken into account. That's why we are here. As a part of the team, Martin Lee Reich is the director of the institute, and I'm here as an impact officer leading this event. So our belief is that AI will impact all aspects of society, and in that open society, including technological power, should be in the hands of many, not a few. And when we say that, there's a clear vision towards it to have a shared ownership of knowledge creation, innovation, and talent development, specifically thinking Netherlands as a geographical indicator. Then finally, the mission is to build multi-stakeholder collaboration in AI between knowledge institutions, predominantly universities or medical centers, industrial partners, government partners, and societal partners. And our main instrument towards this is to focus upon value exchange. What we can learn from universities, what we can learn from industries, and what we can learn from NGOs or public sector organizations to have a clear, coherent overview in order to move forward towards specific societal problems. So how do we do that? We have different labs, and within different labs, we have 5 PhD students who work on-site at non-academic partners for 1 to 2 days per week, which means it could be industry organizations, it could be government organizations like police labs, defense labs, and there are 2 lab directors and a 1 manager for each and every lab. It runs for 5 years, so each and every PhD have a tenure of 5 years to finish their PhDs, and the research agenda is determined by all the stakeholders. Not just the people from industry, also from the universities, as well as from the other societal partners as well. And not just labs, we are also thinking in terms of like next progress towards the ICAI units, where there's a local innovation ecosystem of full path looking towards with medical organizations like university medical centers, large organizations, large MNCs based in the Netherlands, government organizations, not just with the PhDs, but like 50 plus the staff members. So this will be like a whole ICAI unit which can combine multiple labs, and we try to run it together towards like a specific sustainable development goals. And the first the first unit was already launched late in 2025. So how do we define success? When we think of Innovation Center for AI as all can gain and no one is left behind, as well as all can contribute. It's not just about having PhD as a part of the universities, but also thinking about how they can contribute towards nation building specifically. So on the one side, we do have research questions, publications, talent coming in for evaluations, doing internships with organizations. On the other side, what it leads to is co-design of relevance, co-production of IPs, co-defined success. So if the industry has a different success criteria, university has a different success criteria, we try to map it together to have a same defined success. Where we are today, these are the big numbers. We have 59 labs and units working across the Netherlands, with each and every university being a part of it. Thanks to the funding from multiple sources, we have received 300 million plus euros of funding in investment of knowledge creation and talent development, as well as 158 industry partners, 653 PhDs, postdocs, and PD engineers have been a part of our ICAI program. And really interesting thing, which I think is really useful in this global South context, is the talent retention. So people who actually was a part of ICAI, 85% of them stayed with ICAI as a part within the Netherlands to contribute back to the society. So our biggest labs and units by domain is health, followed by strong institutions like police or defense, mobility and logistics in terms of transportation, or the railway organizations, services, again thinking about services which are useful for common good, that industry, infrastructure, and food follows. Within this ecosystem, if we try to divide it based on cities, then Amsterdam has the largest labs altogether, followed by Delft. I think it's a general transition which is also related to the University of Amsterdam and the Technical University based in Delft. And then other in Nijmegen, like Radboud University, and then Eindhoven, Groningen being followed upon. So it's you can see it's not just one lab which is a part of a single city, perhaps, but we are trying to make sure that the whole country is represented in this map as an overall ecosystem. And these are the partners that we have. It's really hard to fit them all in a single screen, but 158 partners, all the industry partners, along with the universities or the societal partners, which have been really helpful in terms of leading this ICA as a bigger channel. Now, talking about our impact, so we see impact at 5 different levels. In terms of community, there's a national ecosystem of local multi-stakeholder networks, which means there's a network which you can actually talk to a PhD if you're working in an industry or if you're working in the public sector organization. Retaining talent, we already talked about that, and there's an ecosystem level in the next slide. Societal, it is specifically related to the sustainable development goals. Scientific levels, at the lab level, what is the co-production in terms of knowledge, like research papers or patents. And at the ecosystem level, thinking about trustworthiness of AI, which is really important for socio-technical setting. And finally, at the economic part, generating business out of all of these things and the startups which comes up by the end of the PhDs or end of the postdoc contracts of the students. So that's a really nice slide according to me in terms of like talent impact. So if we see how many people actually came in from different parts of the world and where they actually landed up. So overall, let's say we have 602 students as per the current April to May 2026 program. 403 are in progress, and in terms of completed, so out of 243 who completed it, 206 stayed in the Netherlands, which means the knowledge that they have attained came back to the society in terms of fulfilling the different societal needs, as well as thinking about how AI can be a boom as well as an advantageous for us. Okay, so what's next? I think I don't have much time to go into what the next plan for this, but we all are here over together. And as an impact officer for AI, I'm really happy to speak with all of you in terms of thinking what's next, where we can contribute towards understanding whether such an ecosystem can be a part within India and how we can proceed it at the further scales. If you need more information, these are the contacts. You can click a picture. The slides can be shared later back on the impact website. But this is what where we are for, to thinking about how such an ecosystem can be translated, not just in Netherlands, but outside of our geographic locations as well. Thank you. And now I think we need to move towards the panel discussion. So we have Lisa. Lisa is a senior policy officer for AI back at the government of Netherlands. And then we also have Preeti Bansal. Sorry, Pallavi, I'm so sorry. And Pallavi is also the part of Inclusive Cultures Lab back in Utrecht University. So the panel discussion, I'm going to moderate it, and I'm going to have the seat over there with all of them. Give me a moment. And we have the panel screen. Yes. Are these mics working? Great. Thank you so much. And I'm going to lead this panel discussion focusing upon the theme of this session itself, which is socio-technical AI. I've prepared some questions, so I'm going to use my phone and just read it aloud. So first question is for you, Virginia. I'm going to start with left to right. As the limitations of the approaches to AI safety are becoming more apparent, socio-technical perspectives are emerging as a promising pathway to integrate technical considerations with societal, organization, and institutional context. How far do you think we are there? Are we still in the beginnings, or we have made some progress?
Good question. I think, yeah, it's working. I think we are as far as the fact that this question is being asked, which is already a bit further than what we were before, but it's still very far from where we should be. AI solutions are solving nothing if they are not grounded and built with the societal aspect around, and therefore focusing on also on pure technical aspects and pure technical improvements is not necessarily actually, there is a saying which I forget now who said, but if you think that technology is the solution to all your problems, you definitely don't understand technology, but even worse, you don't understand your problems. And I think that we need really to start from there. What are the issues that we are trying to addressing? How can AI possibly address those issues? What are we gaining by adding AI to the set of solutions? But also, what are we losing? What are the issues that we are not addressing by focusing on AI solutions? And in many cases and in many issues, we don't necessarily have a need for a full, completely complex AI when it can be used much simpler case. And understand me good, I'm working in AI for 40 years. If I didn't really believe in AI, I probably, either I'm very stupid or I could have been doing something different. So it's not that I don't believe that there is a role for AI, and I have seen many different generations of AI around. But it is very clear, and especially now in these types of hypes, which is not the very first hype that we have had, but especially in types of hypes, we really need to take the time, take the step to ask ourselves, is this really what we need? Are we just doing AI because everybody else is doing AI? I'm from the Netherlands and Portugal, but I live in Sweden. I was in a meeting with, and I'm taking a bit too much time, just an example. A meeting with Nordic ministries 1 year ago or so, and they were all rushing to say, by next year, our government will be using AI for 90%. And then the other one would come, when in 18 months, we're using it for 95%. And I just asked them why. They kind of want me to get out of the room if they could. But the point is that most of the things we are talking about AI at this moment is very much this FOMO, the fear of missing out. We don't really know what we are doing with it, but everybody else is doing it, so let's rush after it. And it is very important at this moment, and that's the answer to your question, to not just move forward, but also take the time to reflect, why are we going there?
Thank you so much. This was really interesting insight. And if I can take the last part of what you said with respect to understanding of each and every government taking a stand on it, like we need to push this. So my next question is to Lisa, thinking in terms of like policies. How do you see in respect to both India was hosting this Impact Summit as well as Netherlands when it comes to this strategic tug of war around AI, and with having US and China as also competitive partners?
Yeah, is this working? Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for that question. I think in that sense, the Netherlands and India have a bit of a similar position, because currently the power concentration of a small group of companies that are developing the most advanced AI is not in our hands. So we are confronted with the same issue, that there are these developers, I think also pertaining to what you just mentioned, that are developing solutions to problems they don't understand, because the problems is what we see in our societies. And that's also why it's important that we, on the one hand, I think we invest in our own capacities, so we are capable of understanding the technology and also thereby determining how we want to use it in our society. So in the Netherlands and the EU, we have published a series of strategies in the past year, the EU AI Continent Action Plan. Obviously, we have the EU AI Act, and the way we envision positioning ourselves in on AI in the world is really putting trustworthiness at the center, because we see a condition for adoption is for people to be able to trust the technology. And I think here we have actually a nice shared sentiment with India, because India released their AI governance guidelines in the past year. And here you can also read that they share this insight that innovation and regulation are sides from the same coin. So it's not necessarily one or the other. While other actors do sometimes take that assumption. So for us, having a set of rules in 27 countries for the EU then that are rights respecting, it not only enables better innovation and it's good for the market because it's also good for companies to know that they all have the same rules that apply for the whole market. But it's also a way for us to say, before we rush into this full-fledged AI adoption, we already agree these are the risks that we determine high, or these are certain risks that we even do not tolerate in our society before we start developing them and deploying them.
That's a lovely answer, and I really appreciate your thinking in terms of like how India and Netherlands share our same governance perspective in terms of the guidelines which have been produced. So my next question is to you, Pallavi. Thinking about your experience with digital labor and your work, so do you think a socio-technical turn also employs a geopolitical turn, which simply means that if there are countries who are thinking AI as a socio-technical entity, does it also needs to shift towards how geopolitics can be a part of that? Like some countries coming together who see as socio-technical compared to as technical.
Thank you, Siddharth, for your question. I think I'm going to speak more about the digital labor perspective and what Lisa has already shared. So yes, India and Netherlands, I think, are sharing that similar sentiment because technology is currently being developed by nations who have rarely experienced power cuts or broken roads. So based on my empirical research in India on ride-hailing platforms, there were a number of issues I realized which AI does not account for. And I think that sort of includes your geopolitical angle also, that, you know, we just have to adopt something which is given from outside, and this lack of development from inside, lack of understanding of what is happening based in our country, our own country. So that's one of the major issues, I would say. So one of the examples I think I would like to cite over here is, I did my research, PhD research, taking into account women cab drivers. And I realized that women cab drivers are those kind of marginalized drivers who are not very confident driving on roads which are new. So they would want that if they know the route beforehand, that would just help them. Now this basic thing, for instance, does not apply to Uber or Ola model which we have. Now here, you just get a notification that you have to just take on some passenger and you have to drive on a new route altogether. So women passengers, women drivers are not comfortable taking that new route. So where does the technology, where does the AI actually account for these things? This is just one of the examples which I have cited from empirical data, but there are plenty of other examples which I can cite. So that's what I wanted to just say, that I think everybody is talking about the socio-technical aspect. We also need to understand that what is happening with the global south and the global north perspective over here, that information is lying in the global south. There are issues over here, but again, technology is developed rarely from our nations. Yes, so that's what I would like to say.
Thank you so much. I think this is a really critical take, and I'm trying to link this back to public trust, so public trust in technology specifically. And I would like to go back to Virginia on this one. So this is a bit technical, also coming from my own personal background. So it's like deep learning specifically is looking at the past, since it trains from existing data. How do we guard against the risk of indexing from the past, which is a typical example from Uber, and to ensure that people have an appropriate level of trust in AI systems, which means not too much of trust, but not too less of trust?
Thank you. I would like to go back to one of the comments that you made, that AI is built in countries that never experienced broken roads and power cuts. And actually, it goes much further than that. AI is built in countries that come from a philosophical and academic tradition based on the Cartesian. I think, therefore I am. So we build systems to reproduce that type of belief. The thinking, the individualism, the individual thinking is core. And if you think about how AI is and how we try to build AI forward, especially going into the AGI, what are we trying to do? Is to build one big God who is going to solve all our problems, and we can just relay all our problems to that God, and it will solve it. First, loses our responsibility, and it solves it all perfectly for all of us. I think, therefore I am. If we come to the global south, and especially in Africa, where I have lived many years, the core of the tradition and philosophical is I am because we are. If we would have built AI based on this tradition, I think that we would have developed a completely different type of systems. Going now back to the machine learning and the deep learning and the data, indeed, we are kind of limiting ourselves to the reality of the past. So data is constructed. Data is what is the reality for AI systems. So we are providing a system that lives in an imaginary reality, the capability to change our lives, our decisions, our environment. So that's something we really need to think about. Also, from a research perspective, at this moment, and I say that to my students all the time, and I say it, we are taking an extremely lazy approach to AI research. We are really taking this idea that we need more data, we need more computational power, and things will improve. That is what we have now, and that is the lazy thing to do. What we really need, if we talk about innovation, is thinking about what are the alternatives. What is the AI, what AI means when we think about I am because we are. What does AI mean when we think about distribution, about inclusion, about diversity? How can we combine so what we have, and I refer to that in my new book, which by the way I'm very happy is out today. Anyway, the approach we have today is the approach of the Play-Doh. We put all the Play-Doh together, we create a huge ball. That ball is becoming less and less clear. There is no color there, no shape there anymore. But if we really want to go into a diversity and inclusion approach to AI, and that is a plea to researchers and innovators in the world, we need to think about the Lego approach. Build all these different colors, different shapes, different things that still manage to all fit together and creating a much bigger thing and a much different thing than ever everybody thought about. So that is the answer to your data issue. Let's completely think about a different way of doing AI. There are other alternatives. We are just being too lazy and follow the easy and the most followed route. Let's go and explore other routes that have not been explored before.
That's a great answer. And congratulations again on the book. I think this is a perfect moment for you.
Get that one out, sorry.
Great. So just moving forward, I really like your response in terms of thinking how we are still tackling the issues based on the past data and moving on those sides, thinking about the role of the government organizations, right, in terms of like the policies. So Lisa, this question is for you. In terms of like larger organizations which often prioritize technical robustness or, you know, fairness issues altogether, but on the other side, we see from the government which is promoting for equity, justice, as well as public welfare, right? So how do you deal with this sort of like distinctions? On the one hand, there are organizations which want to have technical robustness. On the other hand, the government organizations want to promote equity and justice. How do you deal in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I think one of the distinct approaches that we have in the Netherlands that we're quite proud of is what we call public-private partnerships, and also multi-stakeholder approaches. And our ambassador already mentioned that we have these so-called ethical, societal, legal labs on AI, where researchers, but also private sector entities and government. So this could be local policy officers come together to look at societal issues and determine how AI can provide a solution. And by developing that jointly, they are also holding each other accountable. It's rich because you get these diverse perspectives that you co-create a societal solution with the technology. And this is actually also a very core part of our foreign policy because also when you look at international governance processes, I'm from the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so we are also looking into how can we work on global governance of AI. And we support a lot of civil society organizations because we think also in these processes like the United Nations, civil society has to be heard because they bring in other perspectives than governments. They hold governments accountable and they ensure there's legitimacy and the public voice is heard broader from the government interest or the private sector interest. And I think one thing that may be nice actually to mention is that sometimes interests are also put like sometimes it is assumed that the interests are opposing each other, but that's not always the case. So I also used to work on the Gulf region. And in the Netherlands, we, for instance, have a very well-organized labor inspection as well. And we organized visits from abroad to the Netherlands to show how the labor inspection actually works very closely with companies, so they are able to adhere to regulation and to ensure that they don't get fined. But this is like a very collaborative process. And in the same way, we also developed these things called AI regulatory sandboxes. So for the EU AI Act, now we are in the phase of implementation. So a lot of companies are looking into how can I adhere to the EU AI Act and what is allowed, what isn't allowed. And this is something that both the regulators as well as the companies need to figure out. So, for instance, in December, we organized a really big conference around the implementation of the EU AI Act, where we invited the private sector and also local regulators and policy implementers to have a discussion. And there was like a real invitation to companies to come to these regulatory sandboxes. So it basically means if you are developing an AI tool, you can come and have a dialogue with the regulators to see how your product or service can comply to the EU AI Act. So you are sure that when you bring it to the market, it is compliant.
That's a really great way of looking at it. Specifically thinking in terms of like startups who do create AI systems and have to have those regulatory approaches. And if there's a welcome environment already from the government angle, then it certainly helps us. So I think I'm going back to you again, thinking the example that you gave on Uber. So on the one hand side, we do have government regulations. On the other hand side, we just have users who have faith in these apps, for example, right? If I'm booking Uber from here to go to point B, then I'm relying on it. At the same time, do you think the organizations who are developing these apps are giving enough cues to the users so that they can appropriately trust it? Especially thinking about the woman cab driver example that you gave.
Thank you for your question. I think trust is an interesting word in terms of technology itself. The very basic example, first of all, which comes to my mind is that can you even trust Google Maps, for instance? I'm sure all of us must have instances where Google has landed us in some ditch where we wanted to really go to a particular location. So trust and technology are very interesting terms, and together they come up with new meanings altogether. When it comes to Uber drivers being able to trust technology, when it comes to passengers being able to trust, or when it comes to that these apps, are they providing sufficient cues? So going back to that example, I think humans still trust humans more than they would actually trust technology. So I spoke to, because you mentioned women drivers, so I spoke to a few women drivers, and they told me that if an app is narrating them that this is what you need to do, or this is how your rankings are going to be decreased or increased, so they don't feel that comfortable. So they really want to interact with human managers, especially women drivers, who would really happily just listen to a human manager than actually trusting that technology to tell them that this is where you should go, this is why your rankings are getting increased or decreased. So, but we of course cannot ignore AI over here. So that is why we propose a term where we say that there has to be that human AI collaboration, and human managers should be included as part of our AI system, so that whenever drivers or users, for instance, are in that limbo, they really want a human voice. Going back to chat bots, I mean, if you have a problem, then you do not want an agentic AI telling you that this is what you should do. You want to interact with a human. So, yeah, I'll end over there.
Thank you so much. This was a really interesting insight. And as you can all see, we really need to wrap it up. I just want to say one last words that thank you so much from the organizers from India AI Summit to have ICAI as one of the sessions to be up, over here. And thank you all the speakers and our panel members. It was really nice having all of you over here, and till next AI Summit. Thank you so much.